Welcome to Verge File.
Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories. It wasn't the first time she laughed at me, but it was the first time I realized she was performing. It was a Saturday night. Dinner at her friend Melissa's place. 6 people, wine flowing, music low. The kind of night that should have felt warm, familiar, safe. Instead, I sat at the table like an exhibit. And my wife, Claire, was the tour guide. "Don't ask Jake to fix anything," she smirked, swirling her wine. "He once took 3 hours to hang a picture, and it was still crooked." They laughed. I smiled politely, but inside, something cracked. Not because it was true, because it wasn't. I'd spent the entire Saturday recaulking the bathroom and replacing light fixtures. Things she didn't notice. Things she never brought up. But somehow, this was the story she chose to share. It kept going. How I once shrank her cashmere sweater. How I always forget where she parks at the mall. How I still use the wrong setting on the dishwasher. And each time, the room laughed. But not with me. At me. I watched her face. How alive she looked when they giggled. Like she needed it. Like their laughter validated her. I barely spoke the entire evening. Didn't trust myself to. Not out of anger. Out of something colder. Disbelief. I kept asking myself, when did I become the punchline? On the drive home, the silence was thick. She didn't notice. She was still replaying jokes, probably writing more in her head. That night, she fell asleep quickly. I didn't. I laid there staring at the ceiling, playing her voice on a loop. That mocking tone. That pride in front of her friends. Like she'd built herself up by cutting me down. The realization wasn't loud. It was silent, like the air before a storm. She didn't respect me. Not really. Somewhere along the way, admiration turned into amusement. Intimacy into irony. And I had allowed it. Part of me wanted to confront her. But the other part? It wanted distance. And that part was growing stronger. The next morning, Claire moved through the house like nothing had happened. She hummed while making coffee. She scrolled through her phone at the table, giggling now and then at something on her screen. Probably texts from Melissa. Probably reliving the jokes. I watched her in silence. And she didn't ask me why. That was the first shift. Before, if I was quiet, she'd poke. "What's wrong? You're being weird. Talk to me." Now, nothing. And it was like she confirmed what I'd started to suspect. My silence didn't matter anymore. She'd stopped being curious about me long ago. She wasn't mocking me out of spite. She was doing it out of habit. I'd become wallpaper, background noise, a name in her contact list that meant stability, not connection. So I stopped filling in the blanks. I stopped reminding her of what I did around the house. I stopped correcting her false stories. I let her version of me stand. And I watched. Over the next week, I shifted slowly. I started going to the gym again. Not because I wanted her to notice, but because I didn't care if she did. I worked out longer, pushed harder. I stayed late at the office, not to avoid her, but because being home didn't feel like home anymore. I took calls in the garage, ate dinner in silence. And for the first time in years, I started journaling again. Just scribbles at first, frustrations, observations. But the pages started to fill with something else. Control. It's strange how quickly distance grows when you stop watering the connection. Claire didn't comment on the changes, but she felt them. I saw it in how she glanced at me across the room, confused. Not angry, just unsure. Like she noticed I was slipping away, but couldn't name the reason why. One evening, I came home later than usual. She was on the couch, wine glass half full, staring at the TV, not really watching. I walked past her, said nothing, and headed to shower. She called out, "Hey, you good?" I replied, "Fine." That was it. I shut the bathroom door behind me and exhaled. Not in sadness. In confirmation. The power was shifting, and she had no idea how far from me she'd already drifted. The silence didn't stay quiet for long. By the 3rd week, it started echoing. Claire began noticing things, not the way a caring partner does, but like someone realizing the foundation is shaking beneath them. She made small comments during breakfast, asked if everything was all right, wondered why I hadn't joined her and her friends last Friday. She pretended to casually ask, but the subtext was obvious. She was trying to feel out the distance without addressing it. But I didn't respond the way she was used to. I didn't give her reassurance. I didn't soften my tone or smile and pretend. I just nodded, or said I was busy, and left it at that. And that's when the laughter stopped. I didn't hear her chuckle on calls anymore. The joking with her friends around me disappeared. I noticed Melissa hadn't been over in a while. And Claire's voice, when she was on the phone, wasn't smug or loud. It was flat, clipped, nervous. She started checking my schedule, texting during the day, not with "I love you," but "Where are you? Coming home soon." I gave her nothing to hold on to. That was the quietest revenge I've ever delivered. No anger, no scenes, just distance so wide she couldn't jump over it anymore. Then came the unexpected shift. She tried to flirt. One night, she walked into the bedroom in something she hadn't worn in years. She didn't say anything, just stood in the doorway, waiting. I didn't react. I looked her in the eyes and said, "You don't need to try so hard." She looked stunned, like the punchline had turned into a mirror. And maybe that's what it was all along. Jokes were her way of deflecting the rot. Laughing at me was easier than admitting she'd stopped seeing me, that she'd spent years chipping away at the man who once would have taken a bullet for her. Now, I wouldn't even hold the door. And she knew it. I wasn't cold. I wasn't cruel. I was simply done. And she felt it in her bones. Every night I stayed late at work. Every skipped dinner. Every text left unanswered was another nail in the coffin she built with laughter. But the funeral wasn't mine. It was hers. And the worst part? There was no crowd to mourn what she lost. Just her and the silence. I started moving in silence. No announcements. No warnings. Just action. I got a separate bank account. Quietly rerouted my paycheck. No drama. No conversation. I just handled it, like a man clearing debris after a storm. No need to discuss what already drowned. She didn't notice at first. Claire wasn't used to me being unpredictable. For years, she knew my every move, my every routine. I was transparent, predictable, safe. But safe became invisible. One Saturday morning, I was gone before sunrise. She woke up to an empty house. No note, no text, just coffee grounds in the trash and my side of the bed cold. I drove 2 hours out of town, sat on the edge of a lake. Thought about how peaceful it felt to breathe without her nearby. When I got back, she was waiting. She looked confused, almost shaken. "Where'd you go?" she asked, voice tighter than she meant it to be. "Out," I said. No explanation. No invitation to dig deeper. That's when she knew something shifted. The more I pulled away, the harder she tried to pull me back, but not in ways that mattered. She'd cook dinner, wear perfume she hadn't worn in years, ask if I wanted to watch something together. I declined each time with a nod or a short, "Not tonight." I wasn't punishing her. I wasn't playing a game. I was simply done giving energy to a woman who laughed behind my back while I defended her in every room. I started sleeping on the edge of the bed, then on the couch. Then I stopped coming home at all some nights. I'd stay late at the gym, or crash at my buddy Eric's place. The less she saw me, the more her smile faded. She asked once, "Are we okay?" I looked her in the eye and said, "Define okay." She didn't have an answer, because deep down, she knew we weren't. Not anymore. She'd spent years making me the punchline. And now, there was no audience left to laugh with her. I stopped responding to her friends' texts. I removed myself from the group chats. Unfollowed half her circle on social media. Not out of anger, but precision. Surgical. Clean. I wasn't angry. I was free. And for the first time in years, I could finally hear my own thoughts without filtering them through her voice. And guess what? They were clear. By midweek, she tried organizing a dinner with friends. One of those casual nights with wine, low lighting, and surface-level laughter. The same friends who once sent me memes of my own quirks. The ones who laughed a little too hard when Claire teased me in front of them. I said nothing. Didn't object. Didn't confirm. On the day of the dinner, I walked in 2 hours late, calm, clean, dressed like I didn't belong to the man they used to know. Her eyes widened when she saw me. I didn't smile. I nodded. Sat at the end of the table. Barely spoke. They asked questions. I gave short answers. Claire tried to inject charm. "He's just in his mysterious era," she said, laughing. "You know, brooding and sexy, like some Netflix character." No one laughed. Not really. One of her friends, Jessica, shifted uncomfortably. Another, Marcus, looked at Claire, then back at me, like he saw the disconnect for the first time. The room wasn't laughing with her anymore. They were watching her, studying her, and she felt it. She refilled her wine glass too quickly. Asked me if I wanted dessert. I said, I'm not hungry. Just loud enough for everyone to hear. She paused, swallowed, then forced a chuckle that never reached her eyes. After they left, she confronted me in the kitchen. Why are you acting like this? I stared at her. Like what? Like you don't care. I dried my hands on a towel. Because I don't. No shouting. No sarcasm. Just truth, laid bare like a scalpel on cold steel. She blinked, jaw clenched, but she didn't speak. Because deep down, she knew it wasn't a phase. This wasn't me being moody or distant. This was me turning a page she never thought I'd read. I wasn't the same man who once held her earrings while she tried on dresses. I wasn't the guy who laughed awkwardly when her friends poked fun at me. That version of me. He was buried under years of quiet humiliation. Now I was someone else. I wasn't cruel. I was just gone. I slept at a hotel that night. No explanation. And for the first time, she didn't text to ask where I was. Because she knew. She felt the vacuum. The silence. The absence of love is louder than any argument. I didn't return home the next day. I didn't text. Didn't call. I checked into another hotel across the city. Cleaner, quieter, colder. The kind of place where no one asked questions. I paid in full for a week. No baggage. No forward address. I changed the passwords to every shared account. Netflix, banking, utilities, even the cloud storage where we kept our vacation photos. She didn't even notice until the second day. And when she did, she called me 4 times. I watched the screen light up with her name and let it fade each time. No voicemail. No apology. Just missed calls. Silent attempts to reach someone who no longer existed. On day 3, I walked into our condo for exactly 10 minutes. She wasn't home. I packed a single duffel bag, laptop, passport, important documents, and the only hoodie I ever truly liked. I left the rest untouched. Let her sit in the ruins of comfort we once built. Before I left, I removed my name from the lease. She didn't know that part. She would. Soon. I returned my key to the landlord in person. Signed a document that released me from every financial tie to the place. Claire would now carry it all alone. Utilities, rent, maintenance. It wasn't revenge. It was a reset. Cold, clean, complete. By Friday, mutual friends started texting. Subtle things. You okay, man? Saw Claire's story. Looked tense. Just checking in. I didn't answer. The silence was the message. I had learned something no book, no therapist, no friend ever taught me. When someone's been drowning you with their laughter, the real power is in the quiet walkaway. Not slamming the door. Not yelling from the street. Just leaving and never coming back. That weekend, Claire showed up at the hotel. I saw her through the glass doors. She looked small. Not in stature, but in presence. Like her confidence had cracked and something darker was leaking through. She stood there for 3 minutes. Didn't come in. Then she turned and left. That was the last time I saw her in person. No screams. No begging. Just a woman watching the man she once mocked become a ghost she couldn't reach anymore. And the scariest part? I didn't feel a thing. It took exactly 9 days before Claire's tone shifted. From silence to desperation. From avoidance to exposure. She posted a black screen on Instagram with some cryptic quote about losing what you took for granted. Her story views dropped in half within hours. Mutual friends started asking if we'd split up. I didn't respond to anyone. I had already cleaned up everything behind the curtain. New bank accounts. My phone plan, independent. My location settings, off. Every shared folder, deleted. My name stripped from the lease, bills, car insurance. She was living in our old apartment like a tenant squatting in a space she didn't own. Then came the texts. First, we need to talk. Then, this isn't like you. Then, are you really just going to disappear? But I didn't disappear. I evolved. While she was trying to rewind time, I was already living 2 weeks ahead. I'd started going back to the gym. Not the flashy kind she loved, but a gritty, no mirror, 24/7 place filled with silence and iron. I got back in touch with Matt, an old friend she used to mock for being too intense. Turns out Matt had built a tech startup in the last year. He offered me a project. I took it. Claire used to say I'd never be able to make money outside of corporate. She used to laugh when I brought up going independent. Now I was doing exactly that. Quietly. Methodically. Without telling a soul. On day 12, I got a message from her sister. Claire's not okay. She's spiraling. Says you're ghosting her. I stared at it, then archived it. She wanted a reaction. Any reaction. Anger, guilt, curiosity. But the thing Claire didn't realize is, I had finally understood the art of becoming unreachable, not just physically, but emotionally. She had spent years making jokes at my expense, believing I'd always be within arm's reach. But now I was Echo. She could scream my name across a canyon, and all she'd hear back was her own voice bouncing off cold stone. By the time she showed up at my new place, I had already accepted the fact that closure was her need, not mine. She looked thinner, pale, eyes ringed with sleeplessness. Her voice cracked as she said my name, not loudly, almost like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to speak it anymore. I didn't let her in. We stood in the hallway, cold air between us. Her fingers trembled as she clutched the strap of the purse I bought her last Christmas. Everything about her screamed, collapse hiding under lipstick. She said she made mistakes. She said she didn't realize what she had until it was gone. She said she was scared, but I didn't flinch. She wasn't crying for me. She was crying for the version of her life that no longer existed. The version where I stayed, where I tolerated the jabs, the public digs, the subtle emasculations disguised as humor. I watched her stumble through words like misunderstood, confused. We were both wrong. But she never actually said the word sorry. It hovered in the air like a ghost, close enough to feel, but never spoken. I didn't give her a speech. I didn't shout, accuse, or ask why. I simply said, "There's nothing here for you anymore." Her mouth opened, then closed. No clever response. No tantrum. Just silence. She turned and left. And as she walked down the hall, shoulders hunched, I realized something. Her power was gone. Not because I took it from her, but because I stopped feeding it. The version of me she used to perform for, the predictable, patient, always waiting version, was dead. And the man standing in the hallway? He was carved from every moment I stayed quiet when I should have walked away. Now I walk, and she watches. A week passed, then two. No calls, no texts, no late night, "I miss you" messages. And not because she didn't try. I just never saw them. She was blocked on everything. That was the final step. Not dramatic, not cruel, just necessary. A clean cut through the last thread. What surprised me was how easy it felt. No guilt, no second guessing, just air. Clean, quiet air. But that didn't mean she disappeared. Friends started asking if we were taking space. I didn't correct them. I didn't explain. I just smiled, cold, unreadable. I didn't know anyone access to my pain. Then the stories began. One guy told me she was seen crying at a bar, drunk, ranting about how I just cut her off like I was erasing a stain. Another said she showed up at a mutual friend's party and left 10 minutes later, saying the vibe reminded her of me. She was unraveling. Not because of me, but because for the first time, there was no audience. No punching bag. No man to absorb the weight of her own self-destruction. I didn't retaliate. Didn't post cryptic quotes. Didn't entertain gossip. Instead, I rebuilt. I refurnished my space. Switched to a morning workout routine. Picked up old hobbies I used to enjoy before I started shrinking to fit her expectations. My life began to look like mine again. And that's when I realized something dangerous. The most powerful revenge wasn't revenge at all. It was indifference. True indifference. Not the kind where you pretend not to care, but the kind where you've outgrown the entire story. She had mocked me because she thought I'd never leave the stage. But I didn't just leave. I took the spotlight with me. And now, in her echo chamber, the silence is louder than any joke she ever made at my expense. 3 months after I disappeared, I got a message from a number I didn't recognize. "Hey, I know I probably don't deserve a reply, but I saw your photo on Marcus's story. You look good. Really good. I miss you." I stared at it for 5 seconds, then locked my phone and placed it screen down on the counter. Not even a twitch of curiosity. That weekend, I saw Marcus. He mentioned she'd been asking around, trying to gauge how I was doing, what I was saying. But there was nothing to find. No trace. No breadcrumbs. "She said you changed," he told me. "Said you don't even seem like the same guy." I smiled. Exactly. The man she remembered no longer existed. He was burned down, atom by atom, in silence. In private. And in his place, someone colder emerged, smarter, sharper, untouchable. One afternoon, I bumped into her at a grocery store. No setup, no intention, just one of those flukes life throws at you to test how far you've come. She looked stunned. I didn't stop, didn't slow down, just met her eyes for half a second and walked past, as if she were a stranger asking for time on the street. She turned, calling my name like it meant something. But it didn't. That was the final confirmation. You only owe closure to the version of yourself that still needs it. And that version of me was gone. I got in my car, pulled out of the lot, and let the silence swallow the rearview mirror. No grief. No weight. Just peace. She kept talking about me after that. I heard bits and pieces through mutuals. He changed, she'd say. He's so cold now. I don't even recognize him. But that was the point. I became someone she could never reach again. I didn't need to explain why I left. I didn't owe her a scene, a speech, or a single answer. Because when you finally master the art of silence, your absence becomes the loudest thing in the room. She's still talking, but I'm already gone. Been through it. When they crossed the line, and you made sure they felt it.